our village. So if we drill a well, she doesn't have to go down to the river to get water where the water is dirty. And instead, the water is in a contained area and it pumps up to the surface. It's clean. She won't get bacteria and she won't get worms in her stomach, and she'll be able to eat and have better nutrition. So we go in, we pay for the money for them to drill a well and pump the water up to the top, and we set it up. It's all nice and beautiful, and we walk away. The problem is, a few months later, the pump breaks. Well, nobody in her village knows how to fix a pump, let alone what the pump really is, so it just sits there. Let's say, for instance, just pretend that there is somebody in the village that does know how to fix the pump. But Marita's father looks at the water in the river. It looks clean. It looks the same as the water that came out of the pump. So why would we take the time and money to fix the pump, whatever that is, when we can go get water in the river again? And so her poverty doesn't change. Maybe for a short time she's got well water, but that ends and poverty continues. It's a nice gift, but it didn't end the cycle of poverty. Let's say we do another gift. Let's say we provide books and materials for her school. Or even maybe we provide the cost for some really nice marker boards to put up in her school classrooms so the teachers can teach more effectively and train Marita can learn better. However, Marita's father still believes that she doesn't need an education, and he's going to take her out of school anyways. So those resources we provided really aren't going to change her state of poverty. Let's consider a third gift. We provide some sort of health gift for her. So if she does get sick, she can go get some medicine to take care of the sickness and she can feel better. We build a clinic in her community. We provide resources for maybe a doctor or nurse to work in that clinic and provide her the health care she needs and other people that come to the clinic. The interesting thing is, though, even though the clinic is there, when Marita gets sick, her father takes her to a witch doctor instead, because their culture and their family believe that sickness is a result of a bad curse or a bad omen, and it doesn't have anything to do with the physical. And so they're not going to even go to the clinic. The clinic's a beautiful building and there in our community, but nobody enters it. So the poverty doesn't end, it doesn't change. If we consider a fourth gift, and this would be a really good gift, a church. Marita needs a relationship with God. We need to tell her about Jesus, so we build a church in her community. Provide a way for her to go and learn about God and worship. The thing is, we should have looked at the community already because they have a church. And the problem isn't that they don't have a church, because they've got one, but nobody goes to the church. Nobody enters the doors because the church isn't relevant in their lives. It hasn't made itself relevant to their community. So if we look at Marita's situation, we could provide all these great gifts, and they're great gifts, and they can work. But if we don't combine it with a transformation of heart and mind, if we don't combine it with a teaching, it's going to fail. And it's not going to do anything to end her poverty. Poverty is a complex issue, and it's often affected by various different things in each community. And it can vary from village to village. It's affected by people's cultural belief systems, their education, and concepts that are taught for generations and generations and generations. The one thing I love about Food for the Hungry is that they see that this is a complex issue, and they not only provide these, but instead of just providing them, they walk together with parents and churches and community leaders. It's Food for the Hungry's mission to equip parents, churches, and community leaders to fulfill their God-given responsibilities in meeting the physical and spiritual needs of their children. So they form groups together with the parents. They do parent groups, maybe a training on how to parent your child, and they get together with leaders and they problem solve and say, let's look together at your community and you tell us what problems you see are affecting your children. What can we do to work together and help you, and work alongside of you, to make your community a better place so that your children grow and learn and fulfill their God-given potential? And so the community leaders themselves and the community has a time of reflection and analyzing their own community and solving their problems together. So they work to find solutions. And it's a solution they're looking at for the long-term health of the community. They don't want to just solve the problem for a certain period of time, but they want for when Food for the Hungry leaves the community, and they will, the community continues on their own and is able to grow and learn and get closer to God without the assistance of Food for the Hungry, because they have talents and abilities that God has given them. The second thing that Food for the Hungry looks at, they look at the most critical needs in each community. So they sit down with the leaders and they want to look at they address the critical needs. Some communities may have a critical need of malnutrition. For instance, in our community that we're working with, that Pastor talked about, San Miguel Chimil, I think the percentage is 85% of children under 5 are considered malnourished in the community. It's a huge number. And the reasons behind the malnutrition can be various reasons. For instance, it could be just a lack of resources. They don't have enough money to provide something. Or maybe the community does have the resources to provide something additional for nutrition for their kids, but they don't know that their kids need something additional. They think that just the tortilla and beans is enough for them. Nobody has shown them the value of having some meat and vegetables involved in their diet. So they focus on the specific needs of the children. And this has to come about by the transformation of the heart and mind. It's not just about going to them and saying, you need to do this. It's going to them, walking alongside and showing it how it's been in your life and how it can be in their lives. And Food for the Hungry works very hard to have it be a transformation. If Food for the Hungry works with a community for only about 10 to 12 years, and then they pull out and let those community members take over the work that Food for the Hungry has been doing. It's a long commitment and it's not a short process, but it's an important one so that they are being equipped to do it on their own and on themselves. So what we're going to be involved with and how can we, I missed an important part. I need to tell you about what happened to Martita. So the transformation occurred in Martita's life. And it was cool to see because when I showed up, she was in middle school. And when her sponsor had first seen her, she was a very shy child, did not talk much. Her father was going to pull her out of school. We talked about all the situations that were facing her. And when I saw her, she was a leader in her community. She would go to meetings with leaders that were much older than herself, interact with them. She knew Jesus, that's for sure. You couldn't help but see it in her life. And she impacted others. Today, Martita is a bilingual teacher in her community. She teaches little kids that are sponsored more about God and God's love for their life. And it's an amazing transformation. When her sponsor arrived at her house and saw her for the first time in 4th grade, he made a commitment to just pray for her every day and see that change in her life. And he has. And it's cool to see and meet with him and see the two of them together and the relationship they have formed, even though they've only seen each other maybe a couple times once a year because of his visits to go see her. So how can we be a part of such an awesome transformation? And how we do that is the partnership with Food for the Hungry. It's called a community-to-community partnership. So we as a community partner together with a community or village in Guatemala, and we partner with them in several ways. We partner through prayer and communication. So they send us prayer requests that are a need in their life. We commit to pray for that as a church body and as individuals. We also send communication to them, write to them, encourage them in their work and what they're doing. And secondly, we do that for child sponsorship. Some of you have already seen the table that's in the back with the children that are there. And what we do as individuals in this church is we sponsor children, but as a whole, we're sponsoring the children of San Miguel Chamil. We are investing together to sponsor this community. We also will support them on major development projects. If the leaders come and say, possibly we need to, one of the projects that happened in Marita's community of El Rancho was, I talked about she had a muddy hillside she had to climb to go to school every day. Well, the kids would all go to school and end up covered in mud. And all day long, they just had to play and work and be in their mud because there's no water up at the school. And so the community leaders saw this was a problem and decided, can we pave the road that goes from the bottom of the hill to the top of the hill where the school is? So they approached the church that was working with them, and the church said, sure, let's do it. So the church got together, raised some funds, and when the church team came, the leaders of the church and the leaders of the community worked together to pave a sidewalk up the hill to the church, to the school. And so the kids could go up, get to school, and be clean when they got there. A small problem, but awesome way of transformation. So we can be a part of those type of projects. When there is one, we can do a specific fundraiser to raise money for that project. We're also going to go on a yearly mission trip to visit our kids and to visit the community itself, interact with them, and build the relationship, because transformation is all about building relationships. I think we have an awesome opportunity to invest in this one group of people and see transformation. It's cool because we get to see it on a continuous basis, and month by month we get to see the growth, and year by year when we go and see the kids we saw last year and recognize them, we get to see changes going on in their lives. I'd like to introduce to you our community so you can see where it is. San Miguel Chamil, if you can see the map very well. There's a map of Guatemala, and then there's an orange dot where the community is, approximately. It is about 6 hours north of Guatemala City, the capital, and it is about an hour and a half from the nearest town, Chomilco. I hear an hour and a half is a rough estimate because it depends on if the road has washed out or not. So that can increase depending on the rainy season or not. Food for the Hungry started in this community last year. And so this is a relatively new community to be working with. The staff members have just started entering the community and forming relationships with the leaders and just started forming groups. So we're getting in just the very beginning where the relationships are starting. Just a few statistics about their community. There are about 760 people that live in San Miguel Chamil, and that's about 117 families and about 240 children. And we're going to sponsor those children. In Guatemala, there are about 23 different languages. It's not just Spanish. There are 23 different major languages and Mayan groups, and the language in our area is called Quechua. I don't know any Quechua yet. The place I lived was Pocumchi, so that's the only few words I know. The men in the community are primarily farmers, growing corn, and for the most part they also harvest lumber and carry lumber. Women, they work as artists, basically. They make traditional blouses on a loom that's kind of strapped to their back in a pole, and they feed it's cool, you'll have to see it when you come. The average daily income of people in our community is 20 quetzales. Now you want to know how much 20 quetzales is. This is a 20 quetzal. It's about $2.60. That's how much they make every day if they're working. If we look at the churches in our community, there's two churches. There's a Catholic church and there's an evangelical church. 95% attend the Catholic church and 5% attend the evangelical church. The evangelical church is called Mount Salvation